Financial support for the production of Issues in Education is provided by the Florida State University License Plate. Your FSU license plate supports scholarships for students who enrich and contribute to our communities. Special programs, gift certificates, and rebates for first-time buyers online at fsu.edu/mytag.
Coming up today on Issues in Education, we talk about what the future holds for the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center now that Florida State University has taken over control of the facility. Welcome to the start of our 11th season of Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith, alongside my co-host, Florida State University President, Dr. Eric Barron. July 1st marked the date when the authority of the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center officially transferred from Leon County control to FSU's. Now, work is underway to decide what kind of changes and updates should be made to the 32-year-old facility. Joining us today to talk about it are two of the many people involved in this re-envisioning process. FSU basketball coach Leonard Hamilton, who has used the facility with his team for years. Also here is Karen Moore of Moore Communications. FSU hired her company to help determine and summarize the needs and visions that a variety of stakeholders have for the center's future. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, my first question, we're actually having quite an interesting conversation today, and my first question is to you, Dr. Barron. Why is it so important that the Civic Center become part of FSU?
Well, you could probably just say basketball, graduation, convocation. Those three things alone just tell you that it's essential for a university like ours to have a facility like the Civic Center.
Well, why did FSU need to take over the running for it? Because we've been using it that way for years.
Well, unfortunately, the facility started to get into financial distress. And the distress occurred literally with the bank deciding to call its loan, occurred in early February, just as our coach was making a run for the ACC championship in basketball. And I just don't think it would have worked out very well to have the Civic Center close its doors and go back to Tully to play basketball in. So we stepped in very quietly to make sure that we could rescue it because it's so essential to Florida State. You know, and I think about, okay, it's essential in order to play basketball, but I think the facility has a lot more importance to basketball than just those games alone. How does the quality of the facility affect basketball?
Well, Dr. Barron, I can't tell you how happy and excited we are that the plans are in place to renovate the facility, to bring it up to date, to give us somewhat level footing with the people that we compete against. There's a big change going on in the ACC. We now are becoming the #1 basketball conference in the history of college basketball. And because of the success that our competitors, the teams that we play against, we compete against, have had over the years, the passion of giving, the passion of support, and then the competition with facilities is almost as fierce as it is on the basketball court. So to have the plans in place that we can put ourselves on comfortable footing is really exciting to us.
Is it just for the playing of the game, or is it also for recruiting and for other things?
Well, unfortunately, youngsters buy with their hearts and their eyes a lot, and sometimes not necessarily with their heads. And we just need to understand that we want to be part of the university. We want to be project a positive image for our university. And our guys are working very hard, wanting to represent on the basketball court, but it's almost bigger than the basketball court. Now the games are so televised, and when people come in, we kind of are part of selling the university in so many other ways other than just an athletic event.
There's a lot of talk about the need for the upgrades of the facility. It's 32 years old. So what kind of upgrades are we talking about that need to be, that are under discussion?
So we have a tremendous menu that has come from a consultant. So it's everything from behind the scenes that you can't see, like what's happening to the HVAC system, to the things that are being demanded for modern television, like better lighting, to better sound systems because of the types of performances that you have on board, to changing the seats so that they're new, fresh, and garnet and gold, to deciding whether you're going to change the shape of the arena because it was originally designed for hockey, and therefore you have these strange seating arrangements on the end, to deciding whether you want to blow out a portion of the bowl so that the minute you step into the facility, you feel the energy of what's going on. Because right now we have kind of a cocoon around our facility, to deciding whether or not you want to build out over the plaza and create a facade that looks like the architecture of Florida State, but also allows people to come indoors as they're coming into the arena instead of stretching outside. And you can imagine other uses for that. So it's really a very comprehensive set of issues, and also even if there wasn't another opportunity to have more conference space so that the Civic Center would attract more visitors from outside. So it's a big menu.
Yes, and most of those that you talked about are things that people in the public would see immediately in the results. And one of the things I think is interesting is there's a lot of the Civic Center that's not open to the public, like the locker rooms or things like that. So Coach, you've been in some of these non-public areas. What kind of upgrades need to be done in those areas?
I think you can just really compare the other venues that have been updated over the years with a facility that's been in use for 31 years. There's just about everything you can think of needs to be fresh, needs to be renovated, needs to be improved to bring us up to date. So I'm not real sure there's any part of the arena in front that we can see, and that's behind the scene that we can't do a much better job in making it fresh and up to date.
And could you mention the challenge of having men and women's basketball practice at the same time?
One of the biggest challenges that we have, Sue and I, is that we kind of overtop of each other. The practice facility was not designed so that we could practice at the same time. And most of the youngsters go to school. They have sometimes night classes. For them, academically, it's important that we're able to have a facility that we can practice at the times that best suits our youngsters. And we're hoping that in this whole big project that we can have another practice facility added on, like most of the most modern and updated facilities around the country, where basically the women go to the right, the men go to the left, and they have separate practice facilities that allow them to play and compete. Basketball is one of those games that you have to kind of always be there working on your skills, your hand-eye coordination, so you can go out and compete at your best. And it's very difficult for us to be at our best when we can't really practice at the times that are best suited for our athletes. So having another additional practice facility added on to this complex would be something that would really, really make a big difference in us and put us on even footing with the people that we compete against.
Well, in addition to the upgrades then and the changes that we're going to be talking about, what's the current financial situation of the facility? You talked about stepping in before, but where does it stand now?
Okay, well, obviously we're making sure that the bills are paid, and we did get an appropriation for operations of additional $5 million as part of the transfer. That makes a difference. We're integrating the staff into the FSU staff, and as you can imagine, there are efficiencies that occur when you are integrated into an operation that manages a large physical plant. But we're not living up to the potential in terms of what we might be able to do with a renovated facility and bringing in different acts and events that might occur. The Florida State University managed its first event with the Jason Aldean concert. We're about to manage another, but this is a very different world now, and it's not something that the university, I believe, can do on their own. And so we're actively looking for management of the event side of it.
Well, here's another question. You're sort of still in the process of figuring out what the end game is going to be for the. Where are we in this process? Do you have a final plan? Or are you still looking for suggestions, or how is that process going on?
No, I think we're still working on it, and it's the reason why there were a lot of different groups and a lot of different consultants, and including visioning for the whole area. So we haven't gone through that list and said we're doing this one and this one and this one, but we're approaching the time when we will be able to do that.
Well, Karen, tell us a little bit about the visioning exercise that you did and the people who were involved with this.
Well, it was a three-part visioning exercise. The first was with the president and the cabinet. The second was with the FSU faculty, students, and staff, and the third was with the community. And the community one was really interesting because, first of all, they said, thank you. Thank you, FSU, for allowing us to have a voice and to provide you with some insight. What we heard was that everyone was so pleased to have been able to provide ideas, and we encourage that inclusiveness, that engagement, and that out-of-the-box thinking.
Were the opinions of the different groups weighted differently in trying to summarize everything?
You know, no, not weighted differently, because everyone's opinion is valued. But what we heard was a lot of commonality amongst all three groups. And so that was really rewarding. They may have used different words, but they actually came to some of the same conclusions.
So one of the things that's interesting is you could imagine the visioning exercise stopping at the walls of the Civic Center, but that's not the way it was. This is really appropriately called the Civic Center District. Why is that?
Well, what is so unique for us is that you've got 20 acres, some developed, some undeveloped, in the heart of the downtown of this community. And so the community wants to embrace it as their landmark, their facility that not only belongs to FSU, but belongs to the entire community, and they feel that sense of ownership.
Well, so what kind of things did they want to have as part of this district?
Well, it was incredible across the map, the suggestions that came out, but let me give you three big buckets. The first one was to be able to have that convention hotel. There was a whole theme of connectivity, being able to connect the university and the Civic Center, and of course you have the Turnbull Center also there, but connecting with this convention hotel with the surrounding business community and the vendors and the business owners with that. The second, of course, is they want to have a state-of-the-art facility. And what we heard is our athletes and our fans deserve it. And what they want is to have a place that's visually appealing, that's welcoming, that's engaging, not only for athletic events, but for entertainment, for the visual arts and the performing arts. And the third bucket is what I would consider what they want is a community facility. And they used that word. We want it to be our community. They see it as a destination. We heard things like, make sure there's an ice cream parlor there and a bookstore and a coffee shop and maybe a water feature, because we'd like to bring our family there on Saturday afternoon as a destination, not just come for a game or to hear a concert at it. They loved the fact that the possibilities are endless and that feeling of dynamics and enthusiasm could be inserted into that building.
Are all those ideas is it all in one big lump sum, or how do you shift through to find out what the priorities are for all that?
Good question. So yes, every idea has been captured, and what we did was we sort of brought consensus to these ideas, and we have generated a report that anyone is available to review.
Well, let's tell everybody where they can see that. It's tuckercenter.fsu.edu, and they can go and check out that for themselves. So I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you on there, but I wanted to make sure we got that on there. So how does the study she and the More Communications did, how does that match up with both of your visions for what is going to be happening? Okay,
well, it certainly matches up with mine. And of course, the leadership was part of the visioning exercise. That's why I really enjoyed it so much, that it involved a different set. I mean, my view is it's time to be truly transformative. This is something that our region deserves. It is something that Florida State deserves, and it's something our student athletes deserve, and our fans, as you said. And this is an opportunity to take a facility and including it as a district, truly transform our community. And so I think you end up with this vision with a renovated Civic Center, a much better environment for basketball and for recruiting players, a conference hotel that's coupled to it that allows us to, we have 400 some groups that are headquartered here in Tallahassee, but they don't hold their conferences and workshops here. because we don't have the right facility. Conference hotel would change that, especially coupled to the Civic Center. People can come up to a game and say a late game and go to the hotel as opposed to sitting there doing something different. Imagine the Dedman School of Hospitality embedded into a major chain hotel that allows us to ramp up an exceptional program with huge placement of students, and now they start to have hotel management as part of it. And now you brick in Madison and you have gains, and everybody that goes to a Civic Center event spills out of the Civic Center down to the west, down Madison, to all of these restaurants, retail areas, opportunities for nightlife, or the opposite occurs in the stadium for a football game and they spill down Madison in the opposite direction. And we sort of nicknamed this the Madison Mile because from the Civic Center to the 50-yard line is a mile.
Wow.
And so, you know, why not think about this type of vision that's there? And then I think it would be nice, not necessarily on the Civic Center property, but as part of the district, to have the College of Business, including entrepreneurial space and retail space. This becomes a vision that if the community supports it, and our students and fans support it, and the administration supports it, we ought to do it. And so now it's a matter of prioritizing each one of those steps. And probably Leonard has a good idea of what he'd prioritize for the basketball side of things.
Well, obviously, I have a lot of thoughts because we walk it and live it every day. But I think the administration did a great job in selecting Populous as the architectural design folks to come in and give us their thoughts. And I think they're world renowned. They are the #1 company I think in the country from helping design. They have the visions. They have watched people put these things in place, and I think they've done a very good job of making suggestions to us. And I think that's going to be helpful in how we prioritize things because they've laid out some potential things for us to think about that I think is going to make a big difference.
Well, how there's a lot of ideas in this plan. Is it set in stone that you're going to do all these things, or is it going to be one of those things that you can still add to or take away from, or is it set in stone?
Well, first of all, we haven't set all the priorities. A lot of people say, I heard this $100 million number for renovating the Civic Center, and they go, well, if the university has $100 million, you know, maybe they don't really need so much money as we think they do. Well, obviously we're not going to do that, and part of it's going to come from philanthropy and things. So we're going to have to go through that list and say, we are going to do this, we aren't going to do that. Well, here's a conference hotel, and that becomes a public-private partnership or a private entity with the partnership being the Dedman School. And if there's conference space there, then why have the university spend the money on adding conference space to the Civic Center? So instead of having that be a priority, the arena can be the priority. So you have to go through this very systematically, and we didn't want to do this without a visioning exercise, and there's a follow-up after the visioning exercise as well in terms of really a master plan with our community and Florida State together. I think it's going to be a sign of a really great partnership that you've helped us start with this visioning exercise.
Well, what is so rewarding is that the community really has a sense you want them to be a partner.
Yep.
And so they're very pleased to step up to the plate with that.
I think something else that people want to know about is what kind of timeline are we looking at? Because I know, Coach, you probably want things sooner rather than later on some things.
I would love for us just to wave a magic wand and all puff it appears. But realistically, you know, you have a financial component and you have priorities. Yes, we need additional practice plates, but we also need we have a plan. And I think the best thing we've done, we have organized what we think would be the things we need from an athletic standpoint. Now, we put all the other components together, and I think we'll come up with the right plan that's feasible for everybody.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I asked for a magic wand when I was offered this job. They didn't provide one.
Where is it?
Yeah, I don't know. But we are trying to pep up the center with some decals and some changes there and posters.
There's new signs
and we've spent a few $1 million underneath the surface to make sure things that are working well. And we got to make a decision about the bowl shape, and as soon as we can, we're going to be changing the seat. So we've got kind of a set of things that we want to do that are a priority. I'm hoping the practice facility becomes a priority for fundraising for athletics.
And that's a lot more important, I think, than what people would realize. Just having the ability to have your kids to work and have a sense of ownership, pride. This is what the other schools have gone through. When you go down the list of the top programs, and we definitely have a lot of top programs in our league, they understand the importance of having separate facilities for the men and women to operate on, and that's important to us, and that should be a high priority on our list.
When will these decisions be made, or how soon will they be made?
Well, I think you're going to see it happen fairly rapidly. Our hope is to have an external contractor for events decision very shortly, and then following the master planning to make a prospectus for a conference hotel, hopefully by the end of the year. So you'll start to see several of these things, and we got to make a decision on the arena because we have a gap time to put in those seats. You don't put them on during basketball, and you don't put them on when you want to have convocation. So there's kind of a window, and that will also set part of the timing. But you'll start to see things change.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for joining us today. We've been talking with FSU basketball coach Leonard Hamilton and communicator Karen Moore. To learn more about the results of the vision exercise, go to tuckercenter.fsu.edu. When we come back, Dr. Barron and I will talk one-on-one about more issues in education.
A spirit roams these parts. A spirit of respect, competition, and academic greatness. Some call our spirit myth. Others call it legend. We call it Florida State University.
Welcome back to Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith, talking with Dr. Eric Barron, president of Florida State University. Dr. Barron, we've been talking about FSU's recent acquisition of the Civic Center. Why is it so important that the Civic Center become more than just a place that FSU holds graduation and convocation and basketball games and events like powwow and things like that?
Well, you know, I think you can look at it from two perspectives. One is the environment around the university is also an attractor for faculty and students. And so if we sit here and manage a district and develop it in a way where it's a destination, where people feel comfortable walking down and sitting in a restaurant, they have a visiting professor and they do the same thing, then that enhances what it means to be Florida State University. I think the other thing about it is that we're a community, and this university is a part of the community, and we have an opportunity here to reverse a little bit about that old town gown image and instead sit there and say, how can the university work with the city and the county and the people around us and do something that's exciting for everybody? It's sort of like, how wonderful 7 days of opening nights is like in terms of the arts. Well, now think about that in terms of a district as a partnership. And you get a little bit of the idea.
And the academic element also with the hotel and the Civic Center, it all tying in together is interesting as well.
It really does, to sit there and say, okay, this is also an opportunity for our students to get a set of experiences working. Not only to work while they're going to school if they need to, but to get that type of experience that means that job providers are snapping them up. This is a big plus as well.
Is there any one thing you want people to understand about this process to create the new vision and plan for the Civic Center that they may not realize?
Well, a lot of people look at it and they say this great big project and all of this money. How does a Florida State University have the opportunity or the funds to even think about this? And so you have to realize, okay, here is an indoor facility for practicing basketball, so men and women can practice at the same time and have their classes. Well, this is an opportunity for philanthropy and to have our great boosters step up to doing that. Well, okay, here's a hotel with a major brand name. Well, this is an opportunity for a private entity to come in and enable this whole enterprise. Well, here we are working on this Madison Mile Street, and again, private enterprise enters into that. And then you look at the indoor part of the Civic Center and say, okay, Florida State has to find the resources so that we can make this a venue that's exciting. So you start to realize that some of it's private, some of it's public-private, some of it's public, some of it's philanthropy.
Is the Civic Center one of the big ideas that you hope will advance the rankings of the university?
You know, it's not something that I put out there as a big idea. It's something that you could see emerging, and you realize that out of a problem of finances of the Civic Center comes an opportunity for the entire community. So I don't expect it'll have an influence on rankings, but I think it'll have an impact on our ability to attract people here, and indirectly that'll have an impact.
FSU actually improved 2 more spots in this year's U.S. News & World Report's latest rankings to number 40 of the public universities, and that was before the preeminence money came into play. How is the top 25 plan going? I think that the FSU now has money that's starting to go into this semester. So what can people see that's different from last year?
It's a very deliberate path. We see that the quality of our students is very high. That what we do with the students is exceptional. They graduate at a much higher rate than is predicted. On the other hand, the number of faculty that we have, and therefore the class sizes that we have, are not good enough for those rankings. So we have a very deliberate approach of investing the preeminence money, both in scholarships for students and in more faculty, and investing in areas of tremendous potential growth. People will start to see that hiring really take place this year.
What FSU rankings do you like to highlight for people?
Okay, so in my viewpoint, the things I want are to make sure that we give great students opportunity, that we make those students successful, and we have a great faculty to help them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barron. That's our time for now. Please join us again next month for more Issues in Education. You can watch the premiere episode of Issues in Education the first Friday of every month at 7:30 p.m. That means you can see the next new episode on Friday, November 1st on WFSU-TV. Join us as we discuss the latest developments in higher education happening around the state and across the country. If you have questions that you would like us to address on this program, you can email us at issues@wfsu.org. Again, that's issues@wfsu.org. If you would like to see any episodes of the past episodes of Issues in Education, head to the President's website at president.fsu.edu. I'm Suzanne Smith with Florida State University President Dr. Eric Barron for Issues in Education. We'll see you next time.
Financial support for the production of Issues in Education is provided by the Florida State University license plate. Your FSU license plate supports scholarships for students who enrich and contribute to our communities. Special programs, gift certificates, and rebates for first-time buyers online at fsu.edu/mytag.